everything I did from the time I was 20 until I was 50 years old had some semblance of military. And now I was about to leave the military and I was like, oh man, where's my anchor? Do I know what I'm doing? Do I really fit in here? And once you let that doubt really start taking over, that can be troubling. I just want to have conversations with as many people as I could, so I could understand the landscape that I was about to wade into. Be comfortable being uncomfortable and push the envelope, push yourself to do new things. I don't need to be the manager to be a leader, which I've learned.
Right. You can be a leader in any position.
If you want to be better at anything, you've got to own professional development. Success for me was getting promoted and doing great things and having people saying, ooh, look at Alan. It's not so much now.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Holman, an Army veteran who served in the Medical Service Corps. These days, I work as a technical recruiter in the cleared space here at MetroStar. We know how important these conversations are to the military community, and we're honored to provide a platform for sharing insights, making connections, and building resources for transitioning service members. This is Civvies, a podcast by MetroStar.
Welcome to MetroStar's Civvies Podcast, where we are making it our mission to make your transition just a little bit better by sharing the stories of others that have gone before you. Today, I'm super thrilled to be joined by Alan Keller, a retired U.S. Navy senior enlisted leader with 30 years of service. I asked you about this morning because I still just saying that. I'm like, what? What 30 years? And now you're a dedicated engineer shaping cloud solutions in big tech. So we want to dive into this and hear all about it. Welcome to Civvies, Alan. Thanks so much for being here.
Awesome, Stephanie. I'm so glad to be a part of your pod or the podcast this morning. I'm looking forward to talk about the 30 years that I did in the military, as well as what I've been doing since then. It was an interesting transition. I'm sure we'll get into some of those topics, but looking forward to being part of the podcast today.
Yeah, I'm so interested to hear about your transition, especially because you've held some pretty high level positions within the military. And so, and again, with 30 years, from someone looking from the outside in, I think it would be a pretty fair thought to think, oh, Alan had a great transition. Everything went smoothly, right? So I want to know, did it go smoothly? Just kind of high level for our audience. Just tell me a little bit about your Navy career.
Awesome. So it's weird when I say it. I joined back in January of 1993.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Life at that time, I was 20 years old at the time.
Young.
Was in college, wasn't going well. So I joined the Navy. Everybody, including my family, basically did a double take because it was so unexpected.
Okay, so you weren't from a Navy family or military family? My
dad was in the Army back during the Vietnam War.
Okay.
I have uncles that were in the service. I've got a couple of cousins that were in the military.
So a little bit of exposure.
But I was not a rule follower and more of a rebel.
That shocks me because I know this version of you. I'm like, Alan would never do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Authority. I like to buck the system. We'll leave it at that. So I joined the military. I became a data processing technician.
Okay. And was that something you chose, or how did that come about? So
I went to MEPS like everybody does, and they give you an ASVAB test just to see what your aptitude is. And one of the things that came up was computer technician.
Okay.
And in high school and back in middle school, I like to program in BASIC, show my age a little more.
Yeah.
But I had fun. I really piqued my interest. So that was the occupation that I decided to go with.
Okay. So. And how long did you do that for?
So it's interesting. Started in 1993, and then in 2011, I decided to jump into being a senior enlisted leader. So I did computer, everything from data processing to network operations center to just network engineering over 20 years, and then became a senior enlisted leader for the last 10 of my years.
Did you know when you went into the military that you were going to spend 30 years? Like how long did you think you were going to be in the military for?
4 years.
Okay.
I went in, and it's funny, me and one of my aunts go back and forth. I was dead set. I was only doing 4 years. I did 2 years on one of my aircraft carriers, and then I had a PCS to another one that gave me 5 years. And everybody was like, you did 5 years at sea. You owe it to yourself to go to shore duty.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, cool. Let me do shore duty.
Right.
As I was approaching my 8 years, I had resumes out in the street. I was living down in the Hampton Roads area, and I got selected to be a chief petty officer in the Navy.
Very cool.
And everybody was like, you're not getting out now. You made chief, which everybody aspires to. It's huge. And I made it so junior, so young. So I called the detailer and said, hey, so Eileen, I'm going to stay in. And she's like, yeah, I've been waiting for your phone call.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I was going to do my 20. And then as 20 came, I was looking still to do other things. And before I knew it, 20 went out the window and my goal was to do 30 years.
Yeah. Did you think that you were going to make chief at such a junior?
Not at all.
No.
Making chief as we went, from being a call data processing technicians to information systems technologists to really cover what we did as computer and cybersecurity specialists. It was hard to make chief. So for me to pick it up on my first look and things of my first look.
Wow. Really impressive. I'm curious to know if you're willing to share, like, what did your immediate support system look like in your military journey? A lot of folks that we talk to, they've gotten married very young, right? And some have stayed together for that 20, 30 years. Some have not. I'm always just curious, especially with someone like yourself, very successful. You get chief on the first look, right? Like, who is behind the curtain? Who's behind the scenes supporting Alan? So
I laugh. So I've only been married to my wife for past 15 years. Dee Dee and I have known each other since the 1980s. So she is absolutely my support system. That person behind the curtain that's always on the, hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
I remember, I was like 21 on my first ship and something came up and I called her back, when you have to walk somewhere to a payphone to make a phone call.
Yeah.
And I was having one of them days and she's like, you got this. I'm so proud of everything you're doing. And I still remember that to this day. But we've always kept in contact. We've just been really good family friends and it just morphed into, one thing after another. And now we're really great in our, relationship together with one another and we're constantly supporting each other. So
yeah. I'm curious to know your thoughts on like how important that support system is just for military members in general, veterans transitioning. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really good. You need somebody that knows you. You need somebody that you can confide in. It's good to have friends, but you don't always confide in your dark, deepest secrets with your friends. So it's really supportive. There were times that I just felt alone, back when Dee Dee and I, before we even started dating, and it was like, do I bring this up to her? And you're trying to muddle through something on your own.
Right.
So it's better to have that support system. As I was transitioning out of the military, it's such a big change. I didn't expect to understand what that change was or to experience some of the, hey, I'm losing part of my identity and things like that.
Yeah.
So I would talk to her about it, and she may not fully have understood what I was going through. She was certainly more than supportive on the, all right, hey, how is this going for you and things like that.
So yeah, let's pivot to that in your transition. I actually don't know, how long can someone serve in the military? I mean, you served 30 years. Could you have gone 32 years, 33?
I could have. So I was over at Fort Meade as a CMC for an 06 command. And then as you work for flag and general officers, you can stay longer than 30 years, some up to 36 years, depending on the level of leadership that you're serving at.
Sure.
The Big Pond, it has over 36 years right this moment. But we decided we didn't want to move again.
Okay.
So it was the best, let's transition out of the military here in the Maryland, Virginia area. It's great for the kids. I've got a couple of younger kids at home.
Yeah.
Some that have moved 4 times already in their younger lives. So it was good to put down some roots and stability. And it also helped my wife. She was working in the county school system and it gave her some roots instead of always having to interview and look for that other job, which was an emotional toll on her as a military spouse.
Absolutely. That's a big storyline for military spouses that I've felt too. So how many times did you move, if you recall, in 30 years?
Between 93 until I retired in 2023, 16 times, if I recall.
Ooh, okay.
And my first duty station, I did an unaccompanied tour on an aircraft carrier out of Japan.
Very cool.
So I was trying to get away from home as far as I could at that time.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did because I never left New York until I joined the military. So I really got to experience global travel and everything.
Yeah, it's a neat experience. Before we get more into like your transition, how early you knew it was time to leave and kind of what that looked like, I'm wondering if you'd share some of like the toughest challenges and most rewarding experiences that you had in the military.
Man, all right, let me start with the most rewarding because I think that's the easiest, and all those come flooding back. And so I was the CMC over at Pearl Harbor at the Joint Base out there, and we oversaw the Arizona detachment. So anytime any visitor visits the memorial on the USS Arizona over in Pearl Harbor, my sailors were the ones that were ferrying the personnel back and forth.
Okay.
And they came up to me one time, I was doing a tour with them, and they gave me their coin. And I was like, wow, I'm so used to senior personnel giving junior personnel a coin for being appreciative or something that they have done that stood out. And these junior sailors felt so strongly about my leadership that they coined me.
Yeah.
So that was
you
so
don't always see
pivotal.
that in the reverse. No. You're right. That's a pretty powerful moment. So transitioning to your transition, how early did you start to prepare for transitioning out of the military?
Almost as soon as I knew there wasn't going to be a follow-on duty station. So it was probably about 2 years before I actually retired. I knew I was going to be retiring. We knew we were going to stay in the area, so that helped with not having to look for another place. But you start, looking at what am I going to do next? I knew even if I PCS, what my new role was going to be to go from being, a Navy CMC to now what do I do? It was such an open chasm as I look at it. So I started, 2 years out, really looking back into IT work. Cloud technology had come and passed me by. When I first started, back in 1993, it was mainframes on my aircraft carrier. And now everything's all cloud technology. Absolutely. And then finances. Everybody's always on all right, hey, if I don't land a job right away, because that is a little nerve wracking.
Absolutely. Yeah. What does that look like?
2 years was a great time to say, let's start putting money aside. Let's really look at our finances. Let's start networking. And that was one of my biggest things. I wasn't looking for a job. I just wanted to have conversations with as many people as I could so I could understand the landscape that I was about to wade into.
Yeah, yeah. I want to dig into that a little bit more, but before I do, I think, again, with your 30 years of experience, I would imagine 30 years of experience, again, in the military, I would imagine you saw a lot of men and women that transitioned out either successfully or unsuccessfully. Did that give you more intel for your own transition? Because I'm thinking we're going to have some listeners that think that you had a leg up, right? Because you've probably seen good and bad situations. What are your thoughts on that?
So it's interesting. You don't learn how to transition out of the military until after you go through that process.
Yeah. Okay.
But I talk with so many sailors, trying to help at least guide them. I've had some that were like, hey, I'm just going to go back home. And I was like, it's great. Go back home. It's a soft landing spot. It's comfortable, things like that, so until they figure out what they want to do next. I had others that, a week before they were getting out, they still had no clue what they were going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really tried to advocate network, use social media. LinkedIn was perfect. So I'm trying to help them get a leg out, going to TAP class and just learning some of the nuances.
Right.
Even how to dress. I mean, and we'll talk about that and through this, but just that's a whole change of, what do I wear when I go to work and everything?
Right. So let's talk about it. We know you landed, in big tech, you moved into engineering leadership at AWS. First as a dedicated cloud engineer, now in ADC engineering. For those that don't know, what is that? Break that down for us a little bit.
So it's interesting. You said leadership. So I went from being a senior enlisted leader in the military to just being an individual contributor with big tech, which is great. I did 20 years of management and I was like, let me get my hands back on keyboard, as I tell everybody. Let me start building up my knowledge again. It was great. It was a little scary. Everybody was talking about Java and Python. And I was like, cool, I know what they are. I don't know how to do them. So on Fridays, with the company I was with, they were doing an intro to Java. So I made sure I was going in to, get my 1 hour training and start understanding how to program and things like that. I knew how to do operations. So that wasn't bad, but dedicated cloud engineer, I'm overseeing the storage, the manipulation, the security of user data. So it's a little daunting, but it's also cool. And we get to come up with new tooling and things like that with the company I'm at. They're always trying to innovate, do things better, do things faster. The military is not always so agile like that, and it makes sense. They have so many systems that they're trying to upgrade. It's hard for them to be agile, but big tech, really big at let's move forward, let's iterate, let's improve. We're not good with the status quo. There's always something we can do better, which I love being a part of.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad you also touched on going from a leadership position to an individual contributor. I mean, how was that really? Did it mess with you at all because you'd been in these leadership positions and now you're in an individual contributor? Or did you kind of feel like a sense of relief of like, okay, this is my lane and I'm going to learn it as best as I can?
No, that's a great question. I wasn't sure how I was going to be with that because I'm used to having that seat at the table, being one of the decision makers, things like that.
Right.
But going into, I decided instead of working government, I wanted to go into actual big corporation. So it was good to, hey, I'm not the person in charge.
Okay.
Because I understood I don't know what I don't know.
Yep.
And now being a leader in a major corporation, that's a big change. So I was like, let me get back on the ground floor. Let me work on those things that I may not know right this moment. All of the businessese as we talk about it, it's all about the bottom dollar and things like that. And what cost something or someone is bringing to a company before I look later on down the line and say, hey, do I want to go back into managing people? You use the word leadership.
Right.
And it's funny because even the individuals that I work with or the engineers I work with, some of the new ones are like, oh, Alan's not a manager. And I'm like, no, I'm just an IC like you. But because I've been in leadership roles, because I've built leadership characteristics, that just carries with me wherever I'm at. I don't need to be the manager to be a leader, which I've learned.
Right. And you can be a leader in any position. It's something that I've learned along the way. Yeah. Was that hard for you? Again, going back to like the leadership experience that you've had, now you're going into an individual contributor role. You might be in these rooms where very interesting conversations are happening. Was it hard for you not to go, hey, I have some, like, tell me about, that part of the identity, right? Of shifting and kind of playing a new role.
No, for me, actually, I loved it. I really liked being the fly on the wall.
You did. Okay.
So big tech has different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
So I got to, instead of putting my foot in my mouth, say, let me understand this. I learned about, pipeline deployment and things like that. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. So I can't speak clearly on that. I can now. So it was nice to be able to sit back, be able to learn again. I've been leading so long, doing different things, from managing a base to being the CMC on a destroyer.
Yeah. Pretty high visible roles.
I got to learn IT again, which I loved IT. And, I worked on one of my certifications. I got my CISSP before I got out. And that really was going back to some of the fundamentals again, which I really enjoyed doing and got to hone that experience and that, as we call it at work, that growth muscle.
Yeah. Yeah. How long between when you got out of the military to starting in big tech, how long was that? Was it a couple months? Was it a year? What's the timeline?
So this is the one time that I'll tell everybody, don't be like Alan.
Okay.
Because I was always strongly encouraged, take time off, enjoy time. You've done a lot of stuff. So my retirement ceremony was on November 3rd. And I got a call from my then boss and said, hey, Alan, we're starting a cohort that you actually would fit in well with. Do you mind starting on November 7th? So I looked at my wife and said, hey, are you okay with me starting in 4 days?
Yeah.
And I don't think she fully was, but she, again, supports my decision. So I had 4 days off between my retirement ceremony and starting big tech, which I I regret every now and then, but I don't regret because I have such strong bonds with those that I onboarded. So it was a cohort that was onboarding together from different locations. So I get to meet some of my peers and interact with them today and things like that, which I wouldn't have gotten that experience.
So it worked out. I'm wondering though, if you're willing to kind of unpack the regret, like, is it just time with family or taking a trip? Like, what does that mean specifically?
So after 30 years in the military, you're so ingrained in a particular way. Sometimes you lose your own identity. So I think having that time between the military and a civilian government role, if I had taken like a month off, gives you a chance to relearn about yourself, to integrate back with family. Luckily, when I left the military, I was on shore duty. So I was home every day. It wasn't back when I was deploying, for months at a time or gone for long stretches. So I think that's what also helped hey, let me go back to work. Some of the onboarding was going to be at home anyway. So I got to spend time with my wife and the kids and everything. But I didn't get a chance to, hey, let me just go away for a weekend and just, or take the family somewhere. My wife was working at the time and the kids were at school. So I was like, well, we're not going to vacation right now anyway.
Yeah. So it worked out.
But I needed some me time, which I should have taken probably.
Yeah.
But it worked out.
So we talked earlier about, showing up your first day and like, what do you wear? Was that something for you that you thought about of like, okay, how do I show up here?
We laugh, in the Navy in 30 years, the Navy has gone through so many different uniform changes, but you're given the whole, this is how you wear this uniform. This is when it's rolling out. Yeah. So when I got the phone call from my then manager with hey, can you start November 7th? And I was like, cool. And then in my head, I was like, what do I wear? So
did you ask that question?
I did. I was like, hey, Michaela, so what do I wear? And her first thing was like, do not wear a suit. It was a corporation. It wasn't, or some positions require you to wear, suit and tie and things like that. So she told me, all right, a nice polo shirt, she's like, some of the engineers even come in hoodies and things like that. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'm ready to take that leap into the hoodie department yet. Yeah. But jeans and a polo shirt, I was like, oh, it's great. I get to be an engineer and I'm not feeling all, hey, I'm wearing new clothes, things like that. So it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked the question, because I think I would have felt more out of place if I had overdressed for the role that I was going into.
Absolutely. You have to know your environment. So it sounds like you probably dressed down a little bit for the environment to just look more comfortable and kind of fit in. But did that mess with you at all mentally? I just think of, so I'm someone when I interview, I wear my sports coat. It's just part of me. It makes me feel good, going on to an interview. So how was that for you? Like just wearing a polo?
No, it was fine. I worked in an organization, a spec ops organization, and on our Fridays, it was business casual Fridays.
Okay.
It was nice wearing a polo shirt. I didn't have to wear khakis. I got to just wear jeans. So honestly, it was a good transition. And I was commuting back and forth. So I wasn't worried about, all right, what am I traveling in and things like that. Right. So it helped out.
I want to shift to more of like identity pieces, right? And when service members transition and forming new identity, were you purposely looking for an employer that was like veteran friendly and had a veteran community? Was that on your like wish list?
Honestly, I just wanted a job.
Okay.
It's interesting. I knew I was marketable. I knew I had skills. I knew I had work ethic. But we talked before, it's taking a leap into a chasm. And I was like, I just want to be employed. I've got kids and a household to support and everything. So while I was confident I would get employed somewhere, wasn't sure what that was going to be. So I knew it wanted to be in IT. So I looked around, I started networking with different individuals. There were some that had gotten out of the military recently that were venturing into IT. So I made some phone calls. I looked at LinkedIn. LinkedIn was great to see what are personnel doing, meet up with, hey, I have a question for you. It was never, hey, I'm looking for a job. It was more like, I have a question for you. And it's interesting because you and I both met over LinkedIn when I was like, hey, I have a couple of questions. And you're like, cool, I have answers.
Right. I remember you were very specific in your outreach, which I would recommend to everyone, be as direct and clear and concise. Help me help you. What do you need, right? I don't need a bestseller about how you think I'm the greatest person on earth. I don't need that. I just need to be able to help you. Yeah.
No, and I thought it was interesting, I listened to a podcast that was done by AWS. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that the individual stressed was, don't come to us looking for a job. Come to us with, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, in 30 years, I've done a whole gambit of things. I was like, I don't know what I wanted to specifically do. So I think for me, that was my biggest challenge. And I happened to see there was a dedicated cloud engineering position fit right up my alley of skill sets. And I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. And honestly, if I didn't get that position, I don't know what I would have done next. Because every time I looked at different careers, different job openings, I was like, can I do that? Does that fit now I get to do the whole, what do I want to do? Not what am I told to do, but what do I want to do? What do I enjoy? So that narrowed down a little bit on I knew what I didn't want to do. So that was good. And I landed great. And even now, we'll talk about imposter syndrome, but there are days I go into work and I'm just like, oh, am I really good enough? And like my wife and I were talking yesterday and I was like, I have 32 years of just IT, cyber experience, and there's still changes. There's still, hey, we need you to do this. And I'm like, oh, do I even know what needs to be done for this? I'm not a coder by trade. My boss is always on hey, we're going to flex that muscle. And I was just like, okay, I'm going back to the gym to go work out. I'm going to learn more about TypeScript and JavaScript and Python. And we keep talking about Rust lately. I was like, Rust, that's on the bottom of my car. Yeah. This is an operating system. My wife and I were talking about Fortran and Basic just last night.
Yeah. So is imposter syndrome good?
It is good as long as you don't let imposter syndrome identify you. Because then you start really second guessing, am I good at what I'm doing? Am I doing the right thing? And once you let that doubt really start taking over, that could be troubling. So I talk a lot at work. I'm very open. I was talking with one of the managers and I was like, you know what? Hey, I need to work on this, but I really feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, that imposter syndrome is creeping back in. And she was like, listen, I've been doing this for 8 years. I still get imposter syndrome on different things. And I was like, cool. I was like, I want to make sure it's not something that I'm perseverating on or really focusing in on, and I don't want to throw in the towel. I still want to be that performer. So it was just bringing it up in the open and having the discussions on how do I work through imposter syndrome? How do I recognize that it is a thing and be okay with it? And then move forward and just say, hey, you know what? That's just another growth muscle that I need to work on right this moment.
You seem so self-aware. So I want to ask you, like, how important is self-awareness to even be able to have those conversations, like with your manager, to say, I don't know where I'm at right now with this, or I need some assistance.
No, I appreciate it. I tend to think I'm self-aware also at times, maybe to a fault. But it's so vital. If someone goes in and they're not able to pinpoint their strengths, their goals. I don't ever call anything a weakness. It's always a goal, something that needs to just be worked on a little bit. Then they're not doing themselves a favor, or they might get to where they're getting that performance review and they get, dinged on something that they thought they were doing well in, but weren't able to really assess, hey, am I strong at this? Am I not strong at this? Some of my things, even though we're on a podcast, is just working on speaking ability. I can talk in front of hundreds of sailors. Sometimes it's trying to come up with something off the cuff and how am I articulating this message? Is it coming across right? And things like that. So
even after 30 years of service and public speaking, you still have some things that you can improve and work on in areas of opportunity, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. I think all of us have things that we can always improve upon. There's nothing that we're ever perfect at. I don't even strive for perfection, but even nothing that we're really excellent at. There's always something new right around the corner that we can work on. I listen, I don't read as much. I listen to more audiobooks, especially when I'm driving and things like that, on just leadership or self-development, empathy, just all those soft skills. I might be a great engineer, but do I have those soft skills to articulate across? Amazon has a wide plethora of engineers from, hey, I just got out of college to, hey, I'm on my second or third career, making sure that I have those soft skills to reach across generations of different levels or what people may have, their upbringing and things like that. So
yeah, I mean, that's such a fair point. I'm sure there's a balance there, right? Where you have to be technically sound to some degree, but then the soft skills matter as well.
Oh yeah. So soft skills are big. And in the military, I knew as a senior leader, you've got to have those ways. How do you talk with people? How do you write about people? So soft skills always mattered. I think they matter even more in the military. You could tell somebody, hey, I need you to do this. No kidding. I really need you to do this. And like now in the civilian world, someone could be like, cool, that's not really what I want to do. So I always have led with the leadership is the art of influence. So how do you really have influence? It's by working on your own soft skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you been at AWS now? How many years? 2.5
years now. And even, we talked about 30 years in the military. I'm like, oh man, I've been at Amazon for 2.5 years. It has flown by. And when I look at day one, I have grown so much as an individual, as an individual contributor, as an engineer. It's been really good. Amazon is a fast-paced environment. So I'm glad that I've been able to keep up with some of the upcoming challenges. I'm blessed that I've had good managers that see potential, see some of my growth areas and say, hey, Alan, let's start working on this a little bit more. Let's have those conversations, things like that.
Was there a point when you came on with AWS, like maybe at the 3-month mark, the 6-month mark, it kind of relates to imposter syndrome, where you finally just felt like comfortable, like I got it, I'm good?
Man, let's see. And it definitely wasn't at the 3 or the 6-month mark. So when I first got to Amazon, we did a whole training onboarding for 11 weeks. I had the IT skills, but it was really learning how Amazon operates. And I tell everybody, Amazon is big tech. And even my 30 years of IT knowledge, I was like, ooh, Amazon's a whole different level of learning things.
Right.
I want to say it was more like 9 months afterwards that I really started to understand, what am I doing? I missed out on so much things. I missed out on, what's continuous improvement, continuous deployment and pipelines. And again, we talked about coding and things like that. So there were some things that I think if I was doing IT day in and day out before I got out of the military, I may have had some exposure to. So it was a crash course on, hey, here are all the things that you put on the side burner 10 years while you were, being a senior enlisted leader. But I was up for the challenge, and I would listen to different technologies that were either out right this now, right this moment, or emerging. One of them being AI. And I love AI. I love learning about AI, and it's amazing. We talked before, I don't consider AI to be artificial intelligence. I really consider it to be assistant intelligence.
So good.
Because I want something that's going to assist me in things. And it had AI work on a coding project that I was just working on yesterday. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. I wouldn't have thought of how to do that class of method that way. And AI helped me. I've got my PMP. So I listened to a course the other week on using AI to help with project management, which is great because even though I'm not a project manager by trade, a lot of what I do in my organization, I'm working on projects, developing, leading projects. So that really helped me on, hey, I'm going to use AI a little more on saying, hey, I need this. I have this. How do I work on this?
Put it together, give it structure, and add in things you haven't thought of.
Be that brain that I don't have sometimes.
We say here at MetroStar, all roads lead to AI. And I can't argue that. Yeah. So I appreciate you just being honest with us and saying, hey, it took 9 months to feel comfortable in your new environment. So for those military veterans that are transitioning into tech, would it be fair that you would say prepare to be uncomfortable and not know exactly what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. I think in the military, again, you might be in a different organization, a different location, you kind of know or have an idea of what your job is going to be, what the day in and day out. You get new things and collateral duties and things like that, but you still get an idea of what's going on. Being uncomfortable is great because it's new to us. And if you're comfortable with being uncomfortable, then you're willing to take that risk. I really feel like those that are just content in their comfort aren't really pushing the envelope as far as they can because they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of not performing at their expectation. And, as I said, their expectation, because we're always harder on ourselves when it comes to being critical. And I find myself in that mode every now and then. And my boss would be like, yep, I didn't say that, Alan. I'm like, you know what? You didn't say that. My mind said that. So I'm being a little uber critical on myself right this moment. But be comfortable being uncomfortable and push the envelope, push yourself to do new things and stuff like that. Because it's the only way we're going to improve ourselves. Again, it's like going to the gym for the first time. You're always uncomfortable with hey, do I know what I'm doing? Do I really fit in here?
Right.
And then after 3-6 months, you're like, okay, cool. This is second nature. Why wasn't I doing this all along? I'm comfortable in this position.
What was the hardest part of your transition?
The hardest part was, the identity change.
Yeah.
Being in the military for 30 years, that was my identity. Everything I did from the time I was 20 until I was 50 years old had some semblance of military, getting married, having kids, having family members pass away, moving to different locations. All that revolved around the fact that I was in the military. And now I was about to leave the military and I was like, oh man, where's my anchor? Not to put a pun on the Navy. I was like, where's my anchor? I'm about to walk away from it. And I had a really good friend of mine that said, listen, when you retire, keep moving forward, because there were so many that retire and still try and cling so much to that identity that they had before. And, I did. I don't want to say I made a clean break, but I moved on. I missed the camaraderie. I missed the just day-to-day buzz that the military generates. But I don't go back and say, hey, I want to be a part of that again. I like my new life and I'm learning new things, having different experiences that I wouldn't have gotten if I was still in the military.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice. Just move forward, as best as you can and lean into your new organization, your new team, your coworkers that you're working with.
Well, and just realize everyone's going to go through, I had another colleague, it's like going through a mourning phase. When you realize, I'm separating, I'm retiring from the military. And then you go into that mourning phase and it's just having that team, that tribe to walk you through that phase and realize that there's something else at the end of this. Before anybody came in the military, they had a civilian life. Yeah. So they're just going back to a different civilian life, whatever that may be.
Yeah. You just made me think of something. A peer of my husband's, she's a colonel, and we got a retirement notification invite the other day, in my inbox, and it opens up. It's all really pretty for July. And I kind of mourned that. I'm like, how are we here? How is Aaron retiring? Like leaving the mill? Like, how are we here? It took me a minute. It's still taking me a minute. This is a different chapter.
No, I laugh because I've got sailors that I've led and developed that are now retiring. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, where did the time go? So every now and then, it transports me back to what I was doing before. And I was just like, the flood of memories come back in. I was just like, man, it's the cycle of life. It just keeps on going and stuff like that. But it's so encouraging. I had one of my sailors, she didn't work for me, but she worked in one of my organizations and I saw she was separating. So I hit her up and I was like, hey, all the best. Let me know if you need anything. Cause I know what she's going to be going through.
Right.
And things like that. But I was like, oh man, she's getting out of the military. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I also, you talked earlier about mourning, right? And going through the motions of leaving the community. Is there a way to speed that up? Can you just skip it? What are your thoughts there?
I don't know if you can skip it. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because I don't think anybody has control of it. I thought I was doing well. I had a game plan. I had a job offer. I knew where I was going to be working as soon as I got out of the military. All my ducks were in a row, and I sat at my dining room table one night and I was just sad. And I was like, why am I sad? And then I was like, oh my goodness, I'm closing the chapter that I've been writing for so long.
30 years.
And I don't know what the next chapter is going to be. So I don't think the morning, I didn't prep for it at all. It just all of a sudden hit me one day. And I was like, so I told my wife, and I was like, I'm sad right now. And she's like, well, why are you sad? And I was like, because this chapter is closing. And I was like, I've got to process through this now. And I didn't realize it. And I didn't realize it was like a mourning period until I had another colleague who was a Navy captain, and he was getting ready. He was like, I'm going through a mourning period right this moment, trying to get through I'm retiring. The paperwork's in, it's been approved. That chapter's, that door's closing. And I was like, oh, that's what I went through. It was a mourning period.
Yeah. And I would imagine you can have two very different feelings at the same time, and that's okay. And it's totally normal. So you can mourn it. But you can also look back with gratitude and appreciation that was part of your journey for 30 years. So you're happy about it, and you're happy to be moving on.
Well,
but you're
excited to move on. Oh my gosh. Not even knowing what life in corporate America was going to be like. So before I joined the military, I worked at fast food. I worked in a department store. I didn't know what corporate America was like. But I was excited for the new adventure. At the same time, sad that I was closing the door. And I was like, but it's got to close. I got to move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you saw the value in just like sitting with your feelings, right?
Well, you have to. You can't let your feelings sit with you.
Ooh.
You have to control your feelings. So again, very open with, hey, let me talk to somebody about this,
Right. Someone that's gone through it.
Somebody that's gone through it. Or I talked with Dee about it. It was like, hey, let me have that trusted confidence. Say, hey, this is what I'm going through right this moment. I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
It was new to me. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, cool. I've identified it. Now let me walk through this, because you have to walk through feelings. If you let your feelings walk you through it, then that's what's in control. And I didn't want that to be in control. I didn't want it to define me. I didn't want it to break me down.
Right.
So it was the learning experience. And now I could talk with others on, you're going to have some sense of loss. It may not be a mourning. It just might be a sense of loss. And how do you expect it? And then how do you walk through that?
How do you navigate it? Yeah. Because you do have to go through it. I share this a lot just from my own personal story of going through grief and losing a parent. And what I've learned is, you have to go through it, because all it does is it's just going to wait for you and go, okay, when you're done with that, Stephanie, I'm back over here when you're ready to feel this, and I'm going to come and get you. So I like that you just sat in your feelings. Yeah.
Easier said than done, I think.
Yeah. So big next question for you. What do you think prepared you in the military the most for transitioning over to the civilian side? Like, I'm talking skill set, things that you learned along the way that maybe you undervalued, but now you're like, oh my gosh, this has aided me so much in my transition.
I think more what aided me was my work ethic and just, can-do characteristic and things like that. I was very apprehensive on what kind of an IT job am I going to land and things like that. So, and I wasn't doing any IT at my previous 3 duty stations. I understood what the IT was doing at the commands I was at, but I wasn't the one in charge. I wasn't the one intervening, hey, we need to do this and things like that. So I think just, hey, let me roll up my sleeves. Let me learn new things. Let me, I did 30 years. I went from E2 to the highest pay grade as an E9 with that whole, let me see what that next challenge is going to be. And let me, 1, do the best that I can for that. 2, I really believe in everything you do. If you leave something better after you've worked on it, touched it, entered a space than you did before you got there, that automatically is just going to make things a lot better. It was so funny when I was on one of the ships, we were always telling everybody, leave your watch better than how you took it. So I used that with everything that I've done. So I just knew that I needed to build up my IT skills and my IT knowledge, because things have come and gone. Cybersecurity wasn't even a word when I first came in. It was all just, IT security or the big red book at the time. So I wanted to learn more about how cybersecurity impacted all phases of IT management and structure and things like that. So, and it was just learning new things and getting some certifications and having conversations. Conversations was the biggest piece of it also.
So that's such a good segue to professional development. Is professional development your responsibility or your organization's? It sounds like you spend a lot of time, your own time, professionally developing and sharpening your tool set.
Yep. If you want to be better at anything, you've got to own professional development. Again, I've had and still have great bosses that have really pushed professional development and building those different skills, but you've got to own it. Again, P&P, I don't do a lot of things with P&P in my D&D, but I was on I need to work on understanding how AI is impacting that. I spend no more than 30 minutes a day, whether
small
it's
pieces,
small chunks,
and they add up. Yeah.
Just keeping up or learning new things. TypeScript, that's my newest growth muscle that I'm working on. So I'll spend 15, 30 minutes a day with some of the courses that are out there for that and say, hey, let me just work on this. Let me read, a quick 5-minute document on what's changing. How can I implement this? Or looking at other codes that are using it.
So it sounds like you're not waiting for someone to come to you and say, okay, Alan, I want you to learn about TypeScript, spend 15, you're recognizing, all right, I need to learn more about this, and then building that into your day. You're driving that bus.
Correct. I'm absolutely driving it. I know what my day is today. I don't know what my day is tomorrow. So it's interesting, even though I've got a master's in information systems management, I went back to the community college. I'm working on a certificate in cybercrime. Yeah. And a lot of that is I'm learning about digital forensics. I'm learning about network analysis, penetration testing of networks. And I was like, I never got to do that. My sailors did a lot of that, but I didn't get to do that.
Right.
So
how did you figure out what type of roles to look for in tech before you transitioned? Like, what was that like?
A lot of that was conversations.
Okay.
Or there were just some things that I was like, I don't really think that job description that I'm reading brings me joy. So I was really looking for, it's interesting as you transition from the military to the civilian. At the end of the day, it really is all about you. So I was looking for what brings me joy. If I'm going to go into work for a company, where's that joy for me? I know I need to be business value added to the company, but I've got to have that, lifetime of joy. So there was just like computer auditing. I was like, no, that doesn't bring me joy. Hey, cybersecurity, network defense, those things excite me. We talked about digital forensics. I had a blast with that. My wife was like, ooh, why are you not doing that? Because she could see the excitement that I had with all the tooling and stuff that I did with that.
Your face even changed.
I know. I'm still excited about it.
Lighting up like a Christmas tree. Yeah.
But having the conversations, and there were some things that I didn't know. So someone that worked at AWS that was a dedicated cloud engineer, I asked them, hey, what do you do day in and day out? And I was like, oh, I can not only do that, but that's exciting. I want to do that. And that's where I landed where I'm at.
Next loaded question for you, Alan. And I'm going to give you some context before you answer this question. But my question is, how do you define success today in comparison with how you defined it yesterday, especially in your younger years, right? I have a pretty different definition of success today. I used to think like money, the house, the car, the this, the that you could get, right? It would increase your happiness. And to some point it does. But there's also value in having a body that works and getting to contribute to a mission you're like crazy interested in it. So it's more for me. And I'm wondering, how do you define success?
No, it is interesting, especially as you go through different stages of life, that how do you, success means is different. When I was younger, my first couple of duty stations, success was at the expense of, I don't want to say my health at the time. I was young, but I was working 16-hour days. I had a boss that was like, you need to go to sleep now, because every time he saw me 24/7 a day, I was up. I was either working in the computer shop. I was working on one of the qualifications we needed to.
Like the raccoon in the office.
Oh my goodness.
Like, get out of here, Alan.
Go to bed.
Oh, yeah.
Grown man getting told to go to bed because I was up all the time. But I was always reaching, striving for that next big thing, that next promotion, that next qualification, that next, some sort of project that I led and delivered or just some recognition. And I don't want to say it was money because, the military, we get paid well.
Sure.
But it really wasn't, anything like different industries pay. So it wasn't, hey, financial success. And I hear that a lot, especially I work with junior personnel, that really is the focus on their mind. I'm like, you know what? Good for you, because later on in life, you might not have that ability, that you might not be in that season and things like that. So do it now while you have that opportunity. But success for me was getting promoted and doing great things and having people saying, ooh, look at Alan. It's not so much now because honestly, that success doesn't matter. I've promoted since I've been at Amazon, which, was really good. I was so happy with that. I thought I was putting a lot of effort into what I was doing. So it was great to get recognized for that. But I just enjoy the things that I'm doing right this moment. My family's in a stable house, but I'm not looking for the next bigger and better thing. I'm really more self-aware now that you can't take it with you.
Right.
But I don't need the newest shiny object. My oldest car is almost 16 years old that my younger son is still driving right this moment. I'm like, I just want to be able to pay the bills, get the satisfaction of, hey, I just did a good hard day's work and things like that, and spend time with my family.
Who's Alan outside of work professionally? I know you're a husband, you're a dad. Who else are you? Oh my goodness.
I feel like I am the jack of all trades. And I had a buddy of mine tell me I'm the hardest working retiree that he's ever met. So I'm someone that's still always pushing themselves. I'm trying to learn new things, which is why I go back to college, to take college courses on IT technology. Yeah. I'm a runner, not running as much as I want to. Every now and then we talked about the body aging. I want my body to do more than it's doing right now.
Yeah.
But I love being outdoors and things like that. I'm also, which you may not even know, I'm a reserve officer with the county police department.
I did not know that.
So it's interesting, I wanted to
Another
see.
Life. Yeah.
I know. We talked about how do I have that, identity, you're losing that tribe when you're in the military. So I was like, I need to volunteer. I have time in my life. I don't know how with, kids and everything else. I wanted to get back to the community. So in the county I live in, they have a non-law enforcement volunteer role as a reserve officer with the county police. So I get to work with the community and the local police department and things like that. So that brings me joy because I really am having an impact in the community that I live in. We talked that I think it was 16 times that I moved in 30 years. Yeah, it's like moving all the time.
All the time.
And I get to have that impact. My wife is doing a lot of things with the county, being in the county school system, and she's in this Leadership Anne Arundel program. So we're really we get to impact the community we live in because we're not moving on. So it's been good.
Yeah. You've just had such an incredible run. What do you value the most now? If there's like a single thing, and for me, it's time, my time, I can never get it back. It's my most valuable commodity. And I want to do something I'm deeply passionate about with my time because I'm not going to get it back. Right. And if you're lucky, you get to use your time towards something you deeply care about.
I really want to say it's my relations and things like that. One of the things as I was getting out, it was that whole, do I work from home and have a remote job? Do I go in the office? Ooh,
that's a good, we should talk about it.
And I'll bring that in, but I am a people person. And I really think with the interactions that I had with service members, all throughout my 30 years and that I still have. I have friends from my first duty station in 93 to this day.
I love it.
We may not talk all the time, but if I picked up the phone, we would transport right back and get into a groove. So for me, it's having those relations and that social network and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we talked about remote versus in the office.
Yes. Tell me about it.
So I had people say, hey, cool, here's a job opportunity. You could sit right at home. And there was a little bit of time I was sitting at home and be like, could I do this as a job? And by like 2 PM, I was ready to go somewhere. Go to the store, go do something.
Yeah.
And I realized, if I stayed home, I would go stir crazy. Mm-hmm. So I like the idea of having a balance between going into the office all the time and having a day or two at home. But I love going in the office. I love interacting with the colleagues that I have and things like that.
Yeah.
I remember walking with my manager one time and she was like, "Hey, Alan, here's, so-and-so." And I was like, "Oh, hey, I knew that individual already. I'd already built a relationship because I would go out and about and see people and introduce myself or look for those, mentoring is such a big part of what I do for others. I'm always looking for others to be a mentor for me or just have hey, Alan, let's just have a 10-minute chit chat on things.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, the self-awareness piece comes up for me that you were self-aware enough to, well, first sit down and really think about, okay, is remote going to work for me? Or is going on site a better option for you to have that just kind of daily engagement? Because that is a challenge. I work remote. And I have to build in structured time to go take a break, go sit in the sun. Cause you can I can be head down for hours and then you're like, whoa, I didn't eat. It's 4:00. What happened? I got sucked in here.
Now it was interesting when I was doing my onboarding, there was a lot of trainings that I needed to do. And there were times I was up at 2 in the morning and my wife was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I got to work through this." So I lost some of the sense of, hey, that we talk about life balance. I was at home and my life balance was getting off kilter. So I needed that structure of, hey, I need to go into work at this time. Hey, I get to interact with other individuals and just, a couple of minute conversation. I knew at the end of the day, I was leaving work. So as an individual contributor versus a senior enlisted leader, I got to leave my work at home most times and be like, now I'm Alan, I'm dad, I'm a father when I get, a husband when I get home and things like that. I wasn't bringing that all with me or just kind of shifting in my chair from my work screen to, oh, hey, here's my life again. Yeah,
it's a tricky balance that I still struggle with. I mean, daily, weekly, because it's very, very easy when you're in a remote position. Like, I'll just go in my office and handle this real quick. And then there goes an hour, it's 8:00, it's 9:00.
We talked about the one aunt that, I was adamant with. I was only doing 4 years and she was like, no, you're going to stay and retire. She just knew it. And the word workaholic at one time came up, because that's a family trait.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not a workaholic. And I realized, oh my, I can be a workaholic. So I've got to work on how do I step away from work. You're always trying to, hey, just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. Work is always going to be there. Or I'm trying to, hey, I want to finish this project. Hey, I need to work on, promotion artifacts, but I need that one more thing. So for, I think 30 years, I was definitely a workaholic in the military because it was always striving to not just promote, but you're taking care of your command and your sailors. So there were times I would work late at night or I would respond to emails. And I would have it auto send at 7-8 o'clock the next morning. So nobody knew I was working late.
Smart.
Because I always wanted I want them to emulate and be like me. But if they saw that I was working 24/7, they're like, oh, I don't want to be like Alan. There's no time off.
No. Yeah. I've heard that a lot from military veterans, just like, I guess the culture that's set when you have a leader that sends out that email at 3 a.m. And they might not realize the impact that they're just working, catching up, right? But then someone gets that and they're like, oh, Alan's on. I got to respond to this. Yeah.
Oh, that is so big. And even I've got to remember now, just because somebody sent it to me doesn't mean I need to respond to it. But I wonder if some of our phone technology, we constantly have that binging, that texting with us. We automatically feel obligated to respond.
Not the payphone days or the pager.
No, you have to carve out time for it. So you get that email at 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
And you feel like that response is due right that moment instead of, like you were saying, hey, someone's just finally getting around to clearing out some of the taskings that they had done and happen to send that email out that could wait until normal working hours.
Absolutely.
And stuff.
I think of text messaging, and I purposely do not have read receipts on my, because I'm like, even if I look at it, I don't want to be obligated because who knows, I might be with my kids and I might be out and about. So you don't always need to immediately respond to certain stuff. It sounds like
exactly. It depends on what you have going on. There might be one of those that, hey, this is high impacting. We really need a high turn on this versus every time you get a bing and you stop what you're doing, it could be a conversation. And I've seen people pivot right to their phone. I was like, wait, you were engaged. You were in that moment. You just shifted because there was a new meme that just got sent to you in text. It ruins that moment.
Before we go here, I want to talk about two last things. Networking, you briefly brought that up earlier, and then mentorship. So I'm going to start with networking. How did you network when you were transitioning out of service? And what would you recommend to someone who doesn't really know what that means, what it looks like? Are you going out and talking to people in person? Are you calling? Tell me about networking.
So we talked about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. So networking, especially, I'm an introvert by trade, if you look at the Myers-Briggs, and I've learned how to be more of an extrovert. So reaching out to somebody, whether it's in person, whether it's over social media, email, that can be a little daunting. One, because you're putting yourself out there. Two, nobody wants to get rejected either. So if you put something out there and you don't get a respond back or you get a negative response, it's like, ooh, hold on.
Right.
So I became a member of different groups in LinkedIn.
Okay.
Both in my career field of IT and cybersecurity, veterans that were getting out. I would link up with other veteran organizations that really focus on military personnel that were getting out. And then that started building my network where I would see somebody and I would just shoot them a DM and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. I see you're doing this. I really would like to just have a couple of minutes of your time, if you don't mind, to talk about blah, blah, blah. And I still do that right this moment. We talk about digital forensic.
Yeah.
There was an organization. I was like, that really interests me. You saw the spark in my eyes.
Yeah. Again,
so
there it is again.
Reached out to people to learn more about it just because I think it's so neat and things like that. So be comfortable just reaching out and saying, hey, do you have 10 minutes to have a conversation? Hey, I'm new to an area. Hey, I'm new to a field. Do you mind talking to me about it? I do that with Amazon employees and just say, hey, do you have a couple of minutes? Can we have a cup of coffee? I'm always great on the coffee talk. Always call it because it really levels a playing field with, hey, we're just conversating. I'm not looking for anything from you other than a conversation. I may glean a couple of nuggets from this conversation, but I don't want that individual to feel like, oh, Alan wants something from me.
Right. Right.
So I just want to pick your brain. I just want to talk. I just want to get to know you and help myself grow each day.
So it sounds like you were really specific with your request. Again, you were really direct, clear, concise of like what you're looking for. You also defined the time, right? Because when someone reaches out, are you asking for a couple minutes or are you really asking for 30 minutes?
I usually say 10, 15 minutes because that initial conversation is really just getting to know you type of conversation. And then there may be a, hey, do you have time later on for like a follow-up, a 30-minute discussion next month or things like that. Most people, if you automatically put 30 minutes out, that's taking away a portion of their day.
It's a good chunk.
Try and carve it out to a smaller chunk. Because then they may be more responsive to that. I have 10 minutes. I don't know who this Alan guy is. Right. Or they may reply back and say, hey, is there anything specific you want to talk about? And then I'll explain it a little more. Hey, I just want to conversate and know more about whatever that topic might be.
Right. And it also sounds like you level set your own expectations. So I imagine you've probably reached out to someone that hasn't responded, and that's okay. You're not kind of spinning with why there's a lack of response or taking that personally. Would you think that's fair?
Absolutely. It's funny. At one time, I thought I wanted to be a CISO as my next follow-on job. I was like, I've got 30 years IT experience. Let me go into that. So there were a couple of people I didn't get anything back from. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. I've got to remember that sometimes you reach out to 10 people and you may get 1 or 2 responses back and things like that. I knew better than to expect all 10 to either accept or decline.
Sure.
There were some people that are just going to be like, all right, hey, I don't have the bandwidth for that conversation right this moment, things like that. It's not personal. It's just business. And I'm taking their time away. So they always have to assess, how valuable is their time. Maybe they were in the middle of doing something and they just didn't have that time.
You just don't know what's happening
exactly
on the other end. Last thing here, talk to me about mentorship specifically. How do you find a mentor on the civilian side, especially for someone that's transitioned out of service? They're in a new organization, environment, new team. Like, How do you go about that?
No, it is good. I don't always think in the military we did well with mentorship. We try and promote it. I don't think we've cracked that code yet. Amazon's great. They have a really, really robust mentorship program where you can put, hey, this is what I'm currently doing for mentors to find you or for you to look for mentors. They're in a program. I'm a mentor to a couple of individuals at US.
Okay.
But I also, we talked about time and I realized I've been doing this for a while. And, I think I've cliffed the time in my life. I'm on that give back mode. So I volunteer with the local high schools. I'm part of the Cyber Patriots organization of just mentoring junior young personnel in middle school and high school for, hey, there are opportunities out there that they may not know about, or sometimes they need somebody that's looking back and saying, hey, come, grab my hand. Let me take you on the journey with me. I know what it was like to be in the shoes that you're in right this moment. And even Amazon has done different activities for young personnel that I love going to. It's for a couple of hours or for a day, and you're interacting and you're being a part of that. Who knows that one person that you might spark that interest that's on the, hey, I really am glad that Alan was there. I'm really glad that, this program was there, that people were a part of organizing.
Yeah.
So I think mentoring is great. And sometimes you need that sounding board, I tell everybody should have, a physical trainer, a personal coach, definitely a mentor.
Absolutely.
To balance things. And
I love what you just mentioned about, AWS having different events. But then you got to show up, right?
You have to show up. And again, it's that time, home life, work life. You've got to have supportive personnel. I do a lot of volunteering and I let my team know, hey, this is what I'm currently working on. Or, hey, I participated in this to show, hey, I'm doing it. There might be one or two that are like, let me do that also. Alan looked like he had a really good experience in that activity that he did.
Right.
But there are just my kids are they're going to be a part of a summer camp for coding and things like that. And I'm like, cool. I can't wait for that because I'm excited for them, but I'm also excited to help out as I can because again, it takes time and effort to put on these things and to help those that are following in our footsteps to say, yep, somebody actually cares about my growth and potential.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan, thank you so much for being here. I've lost track of all time.
Oh.
By the way, I have no idea if we went over. We covered so many just good takeaways for military members, veterans that are listening and going through this right now. So thank you so much for just sharing your story with us.
No, thank you, Stephanie, and the entire team for having me. This was great. I was just thinking before, I was like, we could conversate like this
could go
for
on and on.
hours.
Yeah, we'll have to have him back. Yeah.
A great discussion. And I really challenge those that are listening to this, watching this. Transition's a big process to not take it lightly, to really reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. So if anybody wanted to reach out to me, hit me up. I have no problems having the conversation. I have had plenty of, hey, let me just have an hour chit chat with somebody. And we talk about all kinds of things, not just with transitioning, but with VA and things like that. Cause again, that's another
big topic, right?
Experience, and just leveling the expectations and things like that. And one of the things that shocks me a little bit, cause I did 30 years in organization, it's just that, hey, you might land somewhere that might not be your final landing spot.
Yep.
You might go on to a second and third career path, and that's okay.
It's okay.
You get to play around with what you want to do, and your first landing spot may not be your permanent landing spot. So, but I appreciate being able to tell my story today.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome having you here. Thank you again, Alan.
Awesome. Thank you.